Hi guys, welcome back to another episode. I hope you guys are happy to see us again. So today we will be touching on a topic that many of you would have probably heard a lot about on landed homes, especially from conversations between families or social circles who own them. But maybe you feel paiseh and don't want to ask them what it is directly, or perhaps you may know the gist but not in detail. Not to worry, we've got you. By the end of this episode, you'll become an expert and fully understand the differences between them. So when it comes to enhancing a landed home, you'll often hear terms like renovation, A&A, reconstruction, and rebuilding being used interchangeably. But there are actually 4 very different types of projects, each with its own costs, timelines, approval requirements, and limitations. Understanding these differences can have a huge impact on your budget and even influence whether a landed property is worth buying in the first place. So today we are going to break down what each type of work means, when it makes sense, and how to decide which option is right for your home.
We've seen many buyers purchase landed homes thinking they'll budget a few $100,000 for renovations, only to later realize that what they actually want can only be achieved through, say, A&A and more, such as reconstruction or even a complete rebuild. And then get completely shocked because the difference can easily mean another $1 million in costs. So in today's episode, we'll be breaking down what each option actually means, what they are commonly used for, and how much they roughly cost, and when each one makes the most sense. So let's kick things off with the simplest one.
Most of you watching would have probably done a renovation for your own home before. Renovation is what most are familiar with. We can probably think of it as a cosmetic upgrade in simple terms. You're rejuvenating your home without fundamentally changing how it's built. But it's not just purely aesthetics for landed. Typical renovation works include new floorings, new kitchens and bathrooms, new wardrobes and carpentry, repainting, replacing windows, changing doors, installing smart home systems, electrical wiring, air conditioning replacement, and lighting upgrades. Essentially, you're improving finishes and refreshing the functionality whilst the bones of the house stay largely the same.
Renovation works best when the existing house is still structurally sound. The original layout is functional, the bedroom sizes are good enough, the house simply looks dated. Perhaps it still has broken up mosaic tiles from the 1980s, the dining area is inside the kitchen, the old-fashioned bathrooms, and traditional finishes. So instead of tearing everything down, we are simply modernizing and updating the space to current standards.
The biggest advantages are obvious. It's usually the fastest option with the lowest downtime, the lowest cost, and the least disruptive with minor works as compared to the other 3. You will avoid lengthy authority submissions that come with more extensive works and costs. Many families are able to renovate and move in within a few months instead of waiting well over a year.
But of course, renovation isn't a magical tool that suits all. There are limitations to it. If the existing house has low ceilings, these ceilings remain. If the staircase position is awkward, it stays. If the bedrooms are small, they remain small, unless of course you are able to hack certain non-structural walls to create a bigger space. And if there are deep-rooted structural waterproofing problems hidden within the building, renovation may simply just cover them up rather than solve them completely. So although the home may look revamped and fresh inside, it is still fundamentally the same house.
And depending on how extensive you want to renovate your home, the cost may vary, but a simple one could be as low as $100,000 to $300,000. A more extensive renovation involving premium finishes, custom carpentry, and higher-end specifications may range from $300,000 to $800,000 or even more, depending on the size of the property and the level of finishes.
That said, we do feel that doing up a nicely renovated house is good enough for most, especially for smaller families. Renovating an old landed home gives it a new lease of life and adds a good deal of future value into your house. Even from an investment perspective, a simple reno is probably one of the most prudent and cost-effective way to hedge against rising landed costs, something that we may talk about and touch on in our next few episodes.
And next comes addition and alteration, or what many people simply call A&A. This is probably the category that starts to create some confusion. Some may think changing half the house is still considered renovation, while others may think adding a room automatically means reconstruction. However, they are not necessarily true. In fact, A&A sit somewhere in the middle. You're no longer just replacing finishes, you're making structural changes and adding new spaces while remaining within the prescribed regulatory limits. URA generally considers works to fall under A&A, where additions and structural changes remain within prescribed limits, including the commonly referenced 50% thresholds relating to gross floor area, walls, and structural works. Once those limits are exceeded, the project is generally treated as reconstruction instead. And examples include extending the rear, the side, the front of the house, adding an attic where permissible, creating larger living spaces, removing selected walls, redesigning internal layouts, giving the internal facade a modern look. To your neighbors, your house may even appear like a completely different home.
So when do owners choose to do A&A? When the original structure is sound and the foundation is good, and you just want to extend the usable space in the front or side and the back of the house. Just imagine your original landed home getting a boost in living space in the living area for hosting family and friends, and also a much larger bedroom to accommodate study spaces and dressers, or even more wardrobe spaces. This can be a huge boost. Picture this, all 3 rooms on the second level getting that much more built-up square feet for your usage. We keep the usable portions and improve on everything else. The advantages are quite straightforward: lower cost than reconstruction and rebuilding. It retains portions of the existing building, less demolition works, and a general shorter construction period. However, there are still some compromises. Some structural limitations continue to exist because you are working around parts of the original structure. Sometimes your dream layout isn't achievable because you are constrained by what's already there. And budget-wise, A&A projects can vary enormously depending on the extent of work. Most projects start from $600K to well over $1 million, especially when significant extensions, structural strengthening, and premium finishes are involved. Each project is unique.
Now let's move on to reconstruction. I do think most are not too familiar with the term reconstruction. Most people throw around renovation, A&A, and rebuild only. In fact, most people describe reconstruction as major A&A, which I have to say they are not entirely wrong. But of course, if we go into the specifics, there are important regulatory distinctions. Generally speaking, once a proposed works exceed the prescribed A&A limits or involve major changes such as adding another story, the project is usually classified as reconstruction instead.
I guess reconstruction is best visualized as almost rebuilding the house while retaining parts of the original structure. That's probably the easiest way to understand it. You're replacing such a significant portion of the home that it begins to resemble an entirely new house, especially when we add one more floor and maximize the entire house to its highest built up, say from a 2-story to a 2.5-story house. In fact, from the outside, you may even think a reconstructed house was rebuilt instead.
Some of the situations that commonly trigger reconstruction include proposed additional gross floor area exceeding the prescribed A&A threshold of 50%. For example, imagine an existing approved GFA of 2,000 square feet. If the proposed addition is 1,100 square feet exceeding the 50% threshold, it would generally fall under reconstruction rather than A&A. And another example is external walls. If more than 50% of the approved external walls are removed and replaced with entirely new walls, the project generally becomes reconstruction. The same principle applies to structural works as well. For example, imagine your house has 10 existing structural beams. If your proposed works involve replacing or constructing more than 5 of those beams, or similarly exceed the prescribed limits for structural elements such as columns or floor slabs, the project would generally be classified as reconstruction rather than an A&A. Roof works can also make a difference. Replacing an entire roof may fall within reconstruction depending on the scope. You can sometimes increase the roof height under an A&A proposal subject to approvals. But if you're adding another story above the existing building, that's generally reconstruction. And other examples include increasing the number of stories, changing the housing form, for instance, converting a semi-detached house into a bungalow where planning controls allow.
So why would owners choose reconstruction? Let's imagine you're buying an original 30-year-old terrace house. The plot is great, but the structure and the layout is not enough to go about for your family needs. The bedrooms are tiny and they aren't sufficient. The bathrooms are cramped and too little. We want ensuite for all. The staircase cuts awkwardly and eats up a lot of space. The ceilings are low, the plumbing has reached the end of its lifespan, and the electrical system no longer supports modern living, especially if the waterproofing has begun to fail as well. Could you renovate it? Probably, but after spending hundreds and thousands of dollars, you may still end up living inside a house that feels meh, and one that does not really suit your needs. Tada! So reconstruction gives you the opportunity to rethink almost everything and add more space, not just at the front and back, but also at the top, one more level, bringing the possibility to, add 2 additional rooms at the top with attached bathrooms. A true multi-generational home without the cost of tearing down and to rebuild.
So you can essentially create larger bedrooms, better circulation, open kitchens, home offices, family areas, better natural lighting, higher ceilings where permissible, a modern facade, improved ventilation, and an additional level. And the home feels almost brand new. Another huge advantage is that many of the hidden systems also become new. That includes your electrical wiring, plumbing, waterproofing, mechanical systems, and drainage improvements where required. And these are the things buyers don't see during viewings, but they are incredibly important for long-term ownership.
However, the downsides are also quite obvious. It's a much longer construction duration. It has higher costs. You get to engage more consultants. There are more authority submissions and of course, greater complexity. And of course, certain structural beams and columns must stay and you would have to design your layout around it. This may be unsightly for some who can't stand columns suddenly appearing in the corner of their living room or in the middle of the house. A reconstruction project commonly takes around 12 to 18 months depending on the scale and complexity. Some projects may take even longer, and in general, it works for houses with great bones and efficient enough layouts for its time when it was erected, and cost savings from doing a full rebuild.
Finally, we have rebuilding. This is exactly what it sounds like. Everything comes down, the existing building is demolished, you start with an empty plot of land, then you build an entirely new home from scratch. Subject to URA planning controls and the relevant authority requirements, of course. And when does rebuilding make sense? Usually when the existing house is extremely old, most of the time it's an original single-story house from several decades ago, and the building has very little remaining value, and the structure is unmaintained and breaking apart. Those kind of hoarder or abandoned houses, or when the layout no longer suits modern living and the owner intends to stay there for many years and wants a blank canvas to design a house specifically for their family's lifestyle. Imagine buying a freehold terrace house with a land size of 2,000 square feet and an existing build-up of only 1,500 square feet. Instead of renovating, you rebuild it into a modern 2.5-story house with an attic, a home lift, roof terrace, maybe a mezzanine, double volume spaces, large master suite, and a contemporary facade, subject of course to the site's zoning controls and applicable regulations. And the transformation can be remarkable.
The biggest advantage of rebuilding is flexibility. You're no longer trying to work around someone else's decisions. You are designing the house around your own lifestyle. If you need an elderly-friendly bedroom on level 1, you can plan for it. Need 5 ensuite bedrooms, you can design them. One a home office, a gym, a wine room, entertainment room, basement, man cave, or a lift, everything can be incorporated from the very beginning. Everything will be new, everything is coordinated and built to today's standards. But rebuilding also comes with the biggest commitments of all. It is the highest cost, the longest timeline, the highest execution risk. There are architects, engineers, surveyors, builders, authority submissions, unexpected conditions and delays, construction risks, and material price fluctuations. It is a major undertaking.
So which should you actually choose? And here is our general rule of thumb. You renovate it if the house is under 20 to 30 years old or maintained very well, the layout still works, the structure is healthy, and you're mostly updating finishes. Choose A and A if you need more space, you want meaningful improvements, and the existing building still has substantial value. Choose Reconstruction if the house feels very dated, the layout no longer works, and you want something that feels almost brand new without necessarily starting completely from zero. And choose Rebuilding if you got spare cash lying around because it can cost $1.8 to $2 million for a 2.5-story interterrace sitting on a land size of approximately 2,000 square feet. Or if you're planning a long-term own stay and you want maximum flexibility, or if the existing structure has little value beyond the land, or you're looking to maximize the site's potential subject to planning controls.
One common observation from landed homeowners, architects and builders that we talk to is that older houses often require major replacement of waterproofing, plumbing and electrical systems anyway. So while renovation may initially seem like the cheaper option, once these hidden costs begin to add up, some owners may decide that it may make more financial sense to proceed with a reconstruction or even a complete building in the end, instead of repeatedly patching an aging house. Provided you got the money, every property is different, which is why it's important to evaluate the condition of the existing structure before deciding on which is the right approach for you.
So the next time you are evaluating a landed property, don't just ask how much does the property cost? Ask how much will I actually need to spend after buying it? Because purchase price is only half of the equation. The upgrading and improvement costs can dramatically change the true cost of ownership.
A 4 million house that requires a 1.5 million reconstruction or rebuild may ultimately still cost more than a $5 million house that has already been comprehensively upgraded. Hence, understanding the differences between renovation works, A&A, reconstruction, and rebuilding allows you to make much better buying decisions and avoid costly surprises and better estimate your long-term investment. Whether you're buying your first landed home or planning your forever home, knowing which path fits your property journey can potentially save you hundreds of thousands of dollars and a lot of unnecessary headaches.
If you're not sure where to begin, feel free to reach out to us. Matching the right property and types of works you're prepared to fork out according to your budget and your long-term plans is key, and not just for you, but also as important to us. Whether you're looking for a move-in ready home or one with redevelopment potential, our experience allows us to identify the best opportunities and guide you towards the option that delivers the greatest value for your needs.
In our next episode, we'll dive into something that many seller agents do not even know about when it comes to purchasing a landed home. We'll talk about the key things that every buyer should check before making an offer. These are the small things that are often overlooked, but they can make a huge difference after you've bought the property. So if you're thinking of buying a landed home and if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you wouldn't miss our next episode. See you in the next one.
Bye!